while growing up in Mexico, are there any values that you consider really important to yourself?
I think it's very family values. We're very close with our family. It's something that you take for granted. I mean, I didn't know that it was different until I started learning from other cultures.
And I thought that the Italians were very into their families, but like I have to admit, you guys got us beat, man.
It's the Catholicism.
Welcome to a new episode of the Connected by Language podcast, the one-stop shop for everything language, travel, and culture related. I'm your host, Michele, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Michelle.
I'm so glad to be back. Honestly, I'm so excited to see so many different places, so many different cultures. But, I mean, for the people that are just joining in for the first time, why don't we give a little bit of a stronger, introduction, see where we come from, what languages do we speak, and what we're all about.
Okay, so let's get started. I'm Michelle. I'm from Germany. I speak German, English, Spanish, and French. And I work as a language education specialist at Tandem.
Oh, and maybe you can tell us a little bit more about what Tandem is?
Of course, it's a language exchange app, and you can meet native speakers on the app from all over the world. So talk to real persons. And it can be in one-on-one chats, in calls, or even in so-called language parties that are audio rooms where you enter live and you talk to people in the app.
That sounds fantastic. I've been using Tandem myself too to learn French and Japanese, and honestly, it's been a very fun time. And, to introduce myself, my name is Michele. I'm from Italy, and I'm sort of like a little bit of a nut when it comes to learning everything about culture and languages. And I cannot wait to explore a lot of new places. And, I mean, you have the possibility to also meet us, in live. So why don't you tell us about a little bit of a project that we're doing?
Yes, so we will be at Polyglot Gathering. That's a big conference here in Europe. We will be there from 29th to the 31st of May. And it's in Czech Republic, in Brno.
Yeah, we're going to be there. Some people at Tandem are going to be there to speak about a little bit of a project that they've been working on. And I'm also going to be there to meet some other people. And if you're interested in joining the podcast, just meet me there. And I will love to know more about your culture. And I cannot wait to share it with the rest of the world. And, speaking about this sort of like language and cultural change, I kind of want to reminisce of a little bit of an experience that I had while doing my master's, because my love for going through different cultures kind of started from the world of master studies and like academical studies. I got the ability to be in France for my master's degree, specifically in the southern part in Grenoble, and I got to talk to a lot of people from different cultures. One of the cultures that was really interesting, or at least that kind of gave me, I don't want to say a shock, but it was a little bit different than what I was expecting, was talking to people from Latin America. There were a lot of people from there, from Colombia to Mexico. And while I remember doing Spanish during middle school, seeing them interact with each other was quite different. I have to admit, I was kind of, I thought it was going to be very similar to the sort of things that you learn in the books. But turns out, not at all, not at all.
No, you gotta be really careful. I mean, you gotta learn a bit about the differences between Latin American Spanish and Spanish from Spain.
Oh.
I had that experience too when I went to Argentina. With the Latin American Spanish, they usually do not use the vosotros form. So this is the second person plural, the you that we have in English too, in plural. And they just don't use it. They replace it by ustedes. So usually you would say, maybe from your Spanish experience, ustedes is formal, but in Latin America, it's both. It's formal plural and informal plural for you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they use it in both ways, and that's quite interesting because it's a bit more like they pay respect not only to elderly people or people they don't know, but also to just everyone. So it's a bit more inclusive. Yeah, inclusive. That's what I meant. And it's the way they talk. So this also changes the verb form. So if you say vosotros habláis, that would be how you would say it in Spain. which means you talk or you speak.
Ooh, okay.
And it would change to ustedes hablan. So that would even change the ending of the verb.
Oh, that's interesting. It's such an interesting, refreshing idea of having sort of language that can be both used in formal verb and also informal verbs. Because, like, as I'm doing Japanese myself at the moment, that's the complete opposite. Every single word that you said has a certain level of respect, and if you say the wrong one, everything falls apart. So it's very refreshing to see like a culture that kind of does the opposite. And honestly, I kind of vibe with that mentality of everybody's under the same style because, we're all human beings and we're all are in the same, boat. And that's great to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, we have it in English too. You don't even have the separation between you and you. It's always you.
Yeah. That's right. I
So-
didn't think about it. But well, another thing that I also really enjoyed, or at least I was very interested when I talked to a lot of people from Latin America, was one of the elements that can be considered very close to Italian is gestures.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there is another one, even before the gestures, that Mexicans use the diminutive quite a lot.
Okay.
So before we come to the part where we're not speaking,
Yeah.
but just gesturing, is that, for example, they add the ito or ita, which is the diminutive form, at the end of a word, even though it's not physically small. So when you say casa, which is house, you could say casita, or they often use casita. Or
Yeah.
perro, which is dog, and it would be perrito.
Oh.
So it's usually a way to like show endearment and
I
that you
see.
like really like something, like my little dog, my little puppy, or my cozy house. And it's a very typical thing in Mexico. They would even not only do it with nouns, but also with other words like ahora, which means now, and I would say ahorita. And it's a very, very common thing to use there.
I see. Like, because in Italy, you have the same sort of like diminutive and changing, but usually those are like, yeah, you can have it as some sort of a social structure, but at the same time, most of the time, it's used physically. It's always like a casina, like to say that something is extremely small. So that's very nice. It's taking like an entire concept and just making it more culturally like sensitive or like about something more special than just like a size. And I think this sort of type of communication, like a simple action that like reflects a massive part of day-to-day communication, also comes, like I said, in the world of gestures. Italian has a lot of gestures, the famous Italian cleanse and like the this and that. There's a lot of them, but I have to admit that when seeing people from Latin America, I thought that they were going to be very similar. I thought that it kind of had the same, origin or the same common ancestor, but not at all. Not at all. I found some very interesting gestures that some local Mexican people do that I found very interesting. One of them was to indicate direction. Usually when we want someone to come close to us, we put the palm up and we do something like this when we just wave it back to us. And in Mexico, it's kind of the opposite in a way that they turn it completely down and they kind of like do it from the other side. And sometimes it's even close to the legs. So it's kind of like more subtle. So it's still, from what I gathered, has the same meaning of like come here or like to indicate direction, but it is something that is very different because it's less like it's more subtle, it's more hidden in a way. And another one that I was pretty interested about was the finger nod. So what they do when they say something that is like that they agree or they understand what you're saying, they use the little guy, the little finger. They wiggle the finger up and down like this. And it's a way to basically say, hey, I hear you. I hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you really got to know this because
Yeah.
otherwise you're like, what are they doing?
Yeah, I would admit that if I didn't read about it, it would be very difficult to understand because I would say kind of that as an insult. It's like, oh, you're distracting me with this finger. What does that mean?
I
But-
think me as a German, I would interpret it as a like playing with like for kids, like playing like a little figure.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's pretty cute. So and also there are some other types of gestures that can be misinterpreted. For example, one of the ones that you would usually see in, like from elders or from like your close relatives would be attracting attention with the lips. So
Oh.
specifically, they do something like this. They clench their lips and they kind of like try to, signal, hey, I have to tell something, or like, please talk to me. If you were somebody that does not come from those Latin American countries, I think that you would interpret that completely wrong. So
Yeah, I recently learned about it. A friend of mine told me that she did it in her office, and it was interpreted as the kissing gesture, and as flirting. So that's not what she meant. She really just wanted to like show something, point on something.
Yeah, but like, so one very interesting point that you can get out of this sort of like type of gestures is the fact that it does come from a part of cultural significance. Specifically, I theorize that it comes from old Aztec rituals that were very gesture heavy to like signify each part of the ritual. And I think it also is a great way to kind of signal in a culture that is already kind of known to have a lot of people gathering, a lot of noises coming around for like busy markets or families, because sometimes when there's too much noise, you can't really communicate with voice. So you kind of have to have subtle ways to get as much information as possible without, without adding it into the noise.
Yeah. And actually, it also is said that Latin American cultures are high context cultures. So that means that sometimes the body language and the gestures, they tell you even more than the words, or they are, people already understand a lot just through gestures and body language. The opposite is, for example, the low context cultures, which could be Germany or the US, where you say everything with your words, or the main part of the message is included in the words and not in the body language.
I see. Okay, that makes a ton of sense, because I wouldn't say that Italy is a very low like context language. There's definitely a lot of signals that you can do with your hands, but at the same time, I do think that there's a little bit of that European in like influence, where I don't think you can completely disregard the language when you speak to somebody. But I'm sure that the Mexican culture also has a little bit of hidden sort of like language related activities, not just gestures, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So Mexican culture also has like some ways to give wisdom from generation to generation. So we are talking about the proverbs here, which would be dichos in Spanish. And we brought you two of them. Proverbs
Okay.
are actually like they're deeply woven into the culture. And they reflect a lot of the history, of the humor, and pass on wisdom from generation to generation. And they were mostly evolved over centuries.
Oh, wow. Can we learn about some of them?
Yeah. Let me start with the first one. So the first one is camarón que se duerme, se lo lleva la corriente.
Okay. Can I try and translate it?
Yeah.
Because I think I can get it. So, can you repeat the first word, please?
Yeah, camarón.
Camarón. Okay, that one I don't know what it means. We're gonna put it later.
Que se duerme.
Que se duerme, I think that's pretty easy. Where it means that is sleeping. And se lo tiene. Se lo tiene.
Se lo lleva.
Se lo lleva. Okay, se lo lleva, it means that it gets like that is being taken out of, like taken off from something. And la corriente, I heard that. So it's taken off the current. So wait, what does the first word mean?
Camarón. It's a shrimp.
Oh, it's a shrimp.
Yeah.
I didn't quite think about it. But if I had to give a little bit of a guess of what this proverb means, it's kind of like the fact that if you don't do anything, if you're not proactive, you're kind of like getting swept away from life. So it's kind of like a message about proactivity and being like always aware of what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, you got it already. It's kind of being pragmatic and also resilient, especially in areas where like nature takes over sometimes, where you're like not, where you have to be aware that nature can take over any time and you cannot steer it all.
Oh yeah, I mean that's something that I also should be that I've been learned through hard work as well. Like sometimes you always try to think, oh, nature is gonna do its course, nature is gonna do its course, everything will be okay, and sometimes it is, but sometimes you gotta take that action, man. Sometimes you really gotta be the person that does the change in your life. So that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Do we have another one that we?
Yeah, we have one more here, which is en boca cerrada no entran moscas.
Non bocca cerrada no entran moscas. I think this one is even easier for an Italian speaker, but I'm gonna try and go through through like someone that maybe doesn't know all of these Latin languages. So en boca means that's the mouth, right?
Yeah,
En
exactly.
boca. Cerrada, I think that's the word for close, right?
Yep.
It's the word for close because that's very different from Italian. So that's one of the first few words that you learn. And non entran, I think is the same in Italian. Non entrano, so it's kind of like they don't enter.
Yeah.
And moscas, I think that's the same for Italian as well, which is the fly, right? Mosca. So, wow, okay. I mean, now that I think about it, what this proverb probably means is the same thing that we spoke about it during the episode so far. That is all about silent communication. If you open your mouth, the flies don't come in.
Yeah, it's also about the high context of culture, the high context culture, that when you say something, you gotta be conscious and aware that your words will have consequences.
Oh, okay. Well,
so
yeah, that's true.
It can mean that sometimes you can you'd rather keep your mouth shut before you say something that you might regret later.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and I'm gonna keep that at heart because I'm very interested in learning a little bit about Mexico, more on the boots on the ground side, specifically talking about traveling through it. And I've gotta be very careful about what I say. So maybe the best way to experience it is to just go to the place, maybe shut up a little bit and enjoy some of the great holidays that Mexico has. Because, like, let's be honest, if someone comes into Mexico, you gotta experience some of the great festivals and holidays that Mexico has. So why don't we just start going around it? You wanna?
Yes, tell me more about the holidays.
So everybody and their mother knows that when you first think of Mexico, you think of the Dios de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, the crazy 2-day celebration about the dead, and a great time to celebrate about the circle of life. I guess that's not really the same word, but some people don't really know exactly what's going on during these 2 days because it's a very I don't want to say chaotic, but it's a very lively event, and there's a lot of things going on. So the first one is the altars that it creates. So these altars are placed around the cities, and they have things like the marigold type of flowers, the colorful ones, and as well they kind of decorate the house with the famous skull, like a sugar skulls, and also a lot of places where you can get some food. So it's a very complete package in a way. You have nature, you have decorations, you have colors, and you also have food. But there's also another element that I thought was very interesting, and it was the calaveras. So the calaveras are like they're like satirical poems that kind of they are about death and the people that has recently died, but it's also an opportunity to kind of like explain what the hell is going on in this life. So they're satirical. They kind of also talk about the state of the world, about politics. So it's kind of a good way to create a little bit of a time capsule for people that had recently passed away and what's been going on so far. And the last one, you cannot have a Day of the Dead celebration without talking about basically their mascot, La Catrina. Yeah. So you know about La Catrina, right? Yeah.
I wanted to ask, like, if it's as scary as Halloween.
No, luckily, even though there's like, La Catrina being like a skeleton with like massive amount of like a French inspired clothing, which is the origin of the overall mascot, was a satire comic about the Mexican community being very into European fashion and kind of not being something that lasts through time. When you die, the clothes that you wear don't really mean anything. But no, this celebration is not spooky at all. I would say it's kind of like the opposite. It's so crazy. There's always something going on, and it's a great time to just meet a bunch of people and just go wild. But, keeping this tradition, there's after a couple of weeks after Dios de los Muertos, there is another major holiday that comes that goes on in Mexico and other parts of the Latin American community. That's La Posadas.
Okay.
And basically, La Posadas is a recreation of a very important part in the Bible. It's it's 9 days coming from the 16th to 24th of December. And it's kind of like the story of Joseph and Mary trying to find shelter, before the birth of Jesus. So how does this get translated into the world of Mexico? Well, the major part is that people go. It's pretty similar to the Christmas carols that some parts in America do, where they go around other houses and they light lit candles and they speak and they also sing traditional songs, and it's kind of like this sort of meaning about going from places to places trying to find shelter. But also, this is the place where the piñata got its origin.
Really?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
only know it from birthday parties.
Yeah, it's for birthday parties, but it also gets featured here quite often, and it's supposed to be a representation of the sins that you beat out, and life trumps over the sins, and then all of the candy that you get outside, that's like the reward for for defeating evil, I guess, in some sort of way. But it's kind of like an action that you take to defeat the sins, and you cannot have a Christmas celebration without something to drink. Every
True.
place has it, and in Mexico, the one is the ponche navideño. I think I pronounced it right. The ponche navideño, which is kind of like a fruit punch.
Yeah, exactly. Navideño is the adjective to Navidad, which means Christmas. So
Oh,
you
okay.
did it right.
Yeah, that makes sense. It kind of reminds me of things like mulled wine in some parts of Europe, but I don't know if it's alcoholic. So, so I will have to check that. And another thing is that while you have your tamales, you have your punch, also small kids receive little gifts as like kind of like to keep that Christmas tradition. But, those are the main two ones that most people would quote. But I do have an extra secret holiday that I found.
Ooh.
We're still going to be kept in the Christmas tradition, because this happens on the 23rd. And specifically is La Noche de Rebanos.
The radishes.
Yeah, the radishes.
I did not expect that.
Yeah, I know. I wouldn't expect to have radishes coming in. But yeah, it's kind of has a lot of similarities to America as well, with the whole jack-o'-lantern thing, because it is an opportunity for people on the 23rd to take their massive radishes and just carving things like images or things about Aztec traditions or imagery. But there's a little bit of an extra rule that you have to kind of be careful about.
Oh, which one is it?
Yeah, so if you're taking part in this Oaxacan holiday, do not stab yourself while carving this radishes, because it's considered bad luck and it will curse your radish. So be very careful about it. And also it's dangerous because you're still using knives. But so not only for your safety, but also for the safety of the entire festival, do not cut yourself. But nowadays, this little festival has kind of become a tourist attraction in a way. And it's something that, if you're planning to have your little Christmas getaway in Mexico, it's a great opportunity to do so. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. But one thing that it was very interesting to me when researching things about Mexico was understanding exactly why we are in this sort of situation. Why is Mexican culture so lively? And I think I can give a little bit of an answer. It's because there's very interesting lore around their deities, specifically from the Aztec side. And if you want, I would love to talk about some of the gods that are there, because I have to admit they're fascinating in my opinion.
Okay, yeah, I don't know a lot about them, so.
Oh, so you come to the right place. I will have to read the names, because even a lot of people from Mexico don't necessarily know how to pronounce them correctly, and especially someone like me, I don't think is gonna be fantastic. So I'm gonna put things on screen. I'm gonna put image for the people that are watching on YouTube. But let's start so I can kind of like start with. There's four of them specifically. So the first one is Huitzilopochtli. Huitzilopochtli.
Okay.
This one is kind of like the main protagonist of most Aztec lore, and he's the god of war, and also he's kind of like cursed. I don't say cursed, but his entire deal is that he's in an ever-ending battle to win over evil. Specifically, sacrifice himself to it, and this sort of deity nowadays, it's kind of represented with an eagle. It's an eagle fighting a serpent. So
I recognize that from the Mexican flag.
oh, now that I think about it, you're right. Yeah, the Mexican flag has it, because I was talking about something else. It's more about the Templo Mayor in
Okay.
Mexico City. This like a church, I would say, or like a temple. No, it's church. It's not church. It's a temple. Kind of, it was made to recreate this sort of like a sacrifice of from humans to defeat evil. So if you really want to see the full extent of the story, because I am leaving out a lot of details about it because it's a lot more complicated. But if you really want to see how it is, you go to Mexico City at la Templo Mayor. This will have the entire story laid out for you. But, every single protagonist must have some sort of a companion or maybe even antagonist. So we're going to start with Quetzal. Oh, this one is the hardest one, so I'm sorry. Quetzalcoatl.
Okay.
And, it's also considered the god of creation because he takes bones from the previous generations, he combines it with his own blood, and then you have the new generation. So it's kind of like the progenitor of most, and he takes all of these bones from the underworld, which we will talk about soon. But most of the time, you do see his person as a feathered serpent. That's kind of like the imagery that it goes for. So I'm kind of wondering if there's like where you could find that sort of imagery.
I remember there used to be a peso coin in Mexico where you could see this symbol.
Okay, yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Like, I never seen a peso in real life, unfortunately, so I don't know how it looks, but that's definitely it. Like, if you see any serpent with wings or like a feather serpent, that's it. You can also see in a lot of like street art and stuff. The third one, the third person is Mictlante. Mictlantecuhtli. I'm sorry for mispronouncing it, but he's kind of like the god of death in a way. He is the kind of like runs the Mictlan underworld, like a 9-layer sort of underworld, kind of similar to the way that Hell's gets depicted in some other piece of Christian literature. But in general, this is kind of like the main inspiration, if you have to go see it for yourself, is the inspiration behind La Catrina.
Wow, Mexico has such a colorful culture. And it would be so interesting also to know like how to connect to the people there and maybe even how Mexicans see other countries and cultures when they get around the world.
Yeah, and I think I just know the guy. So welcome to the show, Omar. How's it going?
Hello, guys. Thank you very much. How are you? I really, really enjoyed the introduction and everything that you've said about Mexico. It was so weird hearing it.
Yeah,
Listening to when your mom is talking about you with your aunt, and you're like, "Oh, stop! I don't know."
Did you learn anything new about your culture?
I did. I had no idea about that radishes thing, but
hey, maybe that could be on your like on
I
your
really did. I had to
Yeah.
Google it, and it's true, but it's in Oaxaca, which is it's a southern state, and I've never visited, so I didn't know, but it's really interesting.
Maybe
Thank you, thank you, Michele.
no worries. Maybe you can bring your mates around. You can have a little bit of exploration there, because I like to left out a lot of things about Oaxaca, and I think you're gonna find a lot to talk about, and specifically a lot of crazy stuff that happens. Honestly, it's kind of crazy, but
I agree.
like as a way to kind of start going in our like exploration of the actual Mexican culture, I wanted to just maybe can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about your little personal journey and what you're all about?
Of course. My name is Omar. I'm Mexican. I'm 27 years old, and I'm a Mexican nerd. I
Wow.
I love theater. I love music and puzzles, crosswords. I'm a marketeer, just as Michele. We studied the same master's degree. And yes, I mean, I've been living here in a very small city, just right in the middle, in the center of Mexico. And I've been living here my entire life. And it wasn't until 3 years ago that I decided to pursue my master's degree in France, that I had the possibility to get out of the country and, you know, learn about other cultures. So, yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's fantastic to hear.
Nice. And before we go into that part where you lived abroad, like while growing up in Mexico, are there any values that you consider really important to yourself?
Yes, I did. I think Mexico and well, I believe I want to say the Latin America in general, but I mean Mexico. It's very family values. We're very close with our family, and it's um it's something that you take for granted. I mean, I didn't know that it was different, or that it was not the usual, until I started learning from other cultures. But yeah, I mean, here we're very close, we're very polite, very welcoming. So yeah, I believe those are the main values of the Mexican culture that I has stuck with me.
Yeah, and I thought that the Italians were very into their families, like they were all close together. But like I have to admit, after learning some people from other sides of Latin America, you guys got us beat, man. You guys got us beat.
It's the Catholicism.
Yeah, it's
I believe
Catholicism.
that.
Yeah, I mean, it could be that, but also it's like because people like, I don't know about France, maybe they don't have as much connections to their old families as much. So
Yeah.
I think that there are differences, but yeah, it's awesome. Honestly, I love being close to families. I don't know if Michelle, you also love being close to your family, or
Yeah, but I gotta admit, in Germany, it's a bit different.
it's
So
different, huh?
we value our family, but we are not as close as I have come to know in Latin America as well.
Oh, really? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting because I always want with the pretense that everybody was close to their family, but apparently not as much. No.
Yeah. It's set for me too.
Oh yeah. And speaking of about Mexico, what are parts of Mexican culture do you think are the most unique, or maybe something that are much more difficult to explain to people that are not from there?
Hmm. You know what I was thinking? What you were while you were talking about our culture, when you got to the Day of the Dead celebration,
Yeah.
I think that it's very hard for foreigners to understand, or for me to explain to them our relationship with death,
Yeah.
because it's not scary, it's not sad, it's a celebration, but at the same time it's very formal and sublime, like it's it's really difficult. Really, I've tried um to let people know, and usually the first question is the same as Michelle had, which was if it's a scary celebration, of if it's something scary. And it isn't. I mean, it's not at all. But I think that that ideology mainly comes from Halloween and from these horror movie archetypes that we as Mexicans, or as a child Mexican, I never thought of. Like, it was something like, okay, so today it's November 2nd. We're gonna go to the um, we're gonna go visit our death relatives, and yeah, sure. And then you go and to the cemetery, and there's a lot of people, and there's music bands, and people are eating. There's some people who actually stay the night, like they camp at the cemetery that night. I don't do it. I've never done it, but I know that people do it.
That's
So
crazy. I wouldn't be able to do that. Like that, yeah, and it's camping the night, like because in Italy, like you don't have as much things about death, and usually when you go to a cemetery, the slightest bit of noise, it's like completely breaking the immersion. So that's complete opposite. It's
Like
complete
it's haunted.
yeah, not even haunted. It's just respectful. It's like to like
right.
rest in peace. But I guess like, but that's also a very interesting point because like even if you're dead, you should be also be part of the community. Like I don't see
Yes.
why you have to be completely disconnected from the rest of the world. You know?
And those altars that you mentioned, they usually have food and drinks and things that that the person used to like.
Oh,
So
wow.
we put them in the altar so that they can come back, or that they want to come back to taste the food that they like, and to have a drink of tequila, or like hang out with the family once a year. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful tradition, and I'm so lucky that I was able to be born in this culture.
That sounds funny.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have anything that you remember when going abroad that you felt or first realized that it really shaped you from the Mexican culture?
Mm, yes. Um, I think that I learned to see my country from a foreigner perspective, and I think that I try to be the same way that I was in Mexico, and it was not possible. First, because I moved to France, where our personalities couldn't be more different.
Really?
Uh,
Yeah.
yes, I find French culture. I mean, I have uh, French friends, so I know that they're super funny, that they are sarcastic, and that they're really caring of what they like and what they want to do. But they tend to be very cold and very close in their group friend groups or relationship groups. Um,
Ah,
Mhm.
and
okay. So they
for me,
seemed cold to you. Yeah.
yes. So for me, it's like I'm always at the set. I always try to include people, and I always try to
Yeah.
make my group bigger and bigger and bigger. But with them, it's like, okay, so no, I have my one friend from kindergarten, and I have this other friend who used to be my neighbor, and that's it.
That's it. That's all you get. I
Yes.
see. And I mean, this sort of like French culture thing kind of stems from something that I did research a little bit before about the world of cyclical acceptance in France, specifically from the countryside, because most of the French way of living comes from the countryside. There is this sort of stoicism when it comes to small communities and small places, because most of the time you would have to conduct all of your life about agriculture and livestock management in very small towns. And this sort of like smallness kind of gave them some sort of acceptance that nature and life is as cyclical and as predictable as it can be. So you don't really, in their mind, there's no really a point to expand their network or expand their knowing that much, because what really truly matters for them is people that you can be close with and you can have a hard working days. It takes a long time to get to know somebody, but when you do, it's fantastic. That's kind of like their mantra when it comes to these sort of things.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So, Omar, what actually brought you to study abroad?
Yeah, I it was just an excuse to visit another country. Really, I was I was living at the time. I was living with my best friends, with my two best friends from my whole life. I've known them for like 13 years. We were living together, and one of my friends, her name is Maria, she said, okay, I found this program. I think we could go to France to study. Like, I don't care what are we gonna do there. Let's go. So
Very
basically,
different approach from what I did with my studies abroad.
What was it? What was your approach?
So my approach was what would be useful for my CV, and also what interests me, of course.
yes,
It's
that sounds more wiser, really.
it's way wiser, because it's kind of the same story that I also had when going to Grenoble, where like a
Yeah.
couple of months before graduating, I was in a bus with my best friend Andrea, and he told me, "Hey man, I found this Grenoble place. You want to come with me?" And I'm like, "Whatever, sure, I'll come with you. What are we doing there? I have no idea." Wow, it's like it's the exact same. It's awesome. I thought that I was one
Yes.
of the few ones, but that's awesome. That's sort of like risks that you take.
I did.
Yes.
Yes, I came with zero expectations. I didn't know anything about the city or the school, anything. But I really enjoyed it. And yes, once I got here, it was also I find it as a perfect opportunity for me to learn French, because I've always wanted to learn French since I can remember. And But I never had the opportunity, or it was really hard, and I was focusing more on English. I think I became
Yeah.
like fluent in English when I was like around 15, I think. And after that, I was like, okay, so the next one, which one is it? French. But why French? I don't know. It sounds.
I don't know. It sounds
I
good.
don't know. Yes. And I never had the chance. So I thought that by going to France, it was going to be easier. Well, guess what? It was. I still don't know French, but I had a great time.
Me too, brother. Me too. I don't remember things for fun. I should really say. I know, no. I mean, I've been keeping up with it myself, but like, yeah, it's hard. It's hard, man. Even for Italian, that are Latin languages, it's hard. It's very different. It feels very.
You know what? I think these I've come to this conclusion, and I think it's very relevant for this podcast. I when I first arrived, I had, like I said, I had all the intention to learn French, and I was very excited. And then on the second month that I was living there, I was sick and tired of French. They were so rude to me because I didn't know, or I didn't have the proper pronunciation or anything. I'm not the kind of person who's shy or that I doesn't want to speak in public. So even though I didn't have the right pronunciation or I didn't have the right vocabulary, I used to try, but it's discouraging, and I think that that's why one of the reasons that I didn't try anymore, because I yeah, like I didn't like it, and I had this like kind of love hate relationship now with France. I think that's a reality. When you move to another country, you don't know what to expect, and sometimes it's not as good as you thought.
Sometimes people don't want to like deal with somebody that doesn't really speak their language. But in a place like Tandem, if you're trying to kind of get to know the locals, you need somebody that can be there, can help you out for real. So
Yeah.
th-
And who knows how it feels in your shoes because they
Yeah.
are learning too. They are learning your language.
exactly, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I really recommend people to, if they're trying to learn a language, to not just go to any rando on the street and try to speak. Like, of course, it's great exercise, but you really do need to have some sort of like to find the right person to learn with. But speaking of trying to kind of like understand the other cultures, you said that you were getting sick of France for a little bit. And is there like a specific tradition or like a product from Mexico that you particularly missed while being in France?
Oh yes, everything now. Food, food,
Food,
is
food
is
specific.
is food.
Ah,
French food is delicious. It's really good. I really enjoyed that, but I missed the spice. There's no spice to it. It tastes plain, and yeah, so it was really hard. I actually um, perfected my culinary abilities because I had to cook a lot at home, so that I could have that taste. And actually, you know what? Indian food helped me a lot. I discovered Indian food there, and it was really not similar in taste, but similar in the vibe. So yeah, I would say food in general.
What about the academic environment? So, did it somehow challenge you or inspire you in a different way when you were abroad than it did in Mexico?
Yeah, it did. I think it for me it happened very similar to what happened to Michele that he was mentioning before. That he got very inspired by the different types of communities in cultures that were mixed together. I never in my life imagined me, again being from a small city in Mexico, imagine that I was going to be in a room of with people from all over the world and learning from them. And yeah, I mean it definitely um, I'll definitely learn how to be more tolerant and not to judge someone from my own misconceptions, because I have an idea of the world and how it should work and how people should react. But then I had friend French friends, and they have a completely different idea, and sometimes they are just being straightforward, and for me that it's rude, but it doesn't mean that it's rude. It just means that that's how they are. And sometimes I feel like other kind of cultures are very loud or they are very obnoxious, or but that's me. I mean, it's not them. So I had to learn how to separate that.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest challenges when you came in, because I kind of had a little bit of a training before coming to France, because I was already working in like a universal, like not universal, like a place with a lot of different people from different cultures. So I kind of was already trained to kind of like not make those distinctions. But yeah, there's definitely a lot that someone not even may not even understand, especially when you're presented with countries that you don't even know anything about them. Like I learned, for example, I learned what Lebanon is while I was in Grenoble. I didn't know that Lebanon was even a thing. So not only I had to, not only I had to like get to know people from different cultures and understand their way of thinking, I even had to understand what the hell was in the first place. So I had zero like judges, and I think that's even like, it can even be worse than having at least some sort of like a little bit of a background knowledge, because then you have no idea if what you're saying is actually good or correct. Usually when you say something that is like not rude for them, they usually would tell you. At least that's what my own experience. So yeah, it's very hard, but also it's fantastic when you get to learn.
Yes.
Great. That's great.
Not in Mexico. I think in Mexico, you learn to be very perceptive of how they react, because people usually don't tell you. You have to, figure it out
Context.
Yeah,
on your own.
yeah, that's something that I couldn't handle. That for me it's very hard.
Yeah. And that's again the difference between high context culture and low
Exactly.
context culture.
Exactly. We were
Best
mentioning
example.
about it.
And it definitely, sorry that I interrupted you, but yeah, I
Sorry.
prefer it because I'm used to it.
Yeah.
Don't tell me that I did a bad job. Just tell me that it can be better next time. Change the wording. Don't tell me that everything I do is bad. Just tell me, okay, let's have a different approach.
Yeah.
That's what I prefer.
That can be very useful in the world of also of work. So, I mean, maybe we're going to talk about it a little bit later in the show, but
Yeah.
something when you're getting someone from there and understanding like how do you manage them and to make sure that they get their feedback nice, and how different cultures approach the same task. But I kind of wanted to go a little bit back from your French learning experience to more on a language learning perspective specifically. Like, what was your experience learning languages like French as someone that knows Latin American Spanish?
Yeah. Well, learning what French, I don't know French, but
Okay, yeah. I mean, you have to try a little bit, man. A little bit, you have to try.
the approach I took was well, I said it shouldn't be that hard. It shouldn't be that different, because we have very similar vocabulary, and the words are not far away from each other. But the structure and the pronunciation are completely different. So I just decided to have the same approach as I did with English, because English is, although it's a fairly easy language to learn, it's different from Spanish. It's very different from Spanish. So I remember when I started learning it, I was like completely blank and just taking everything that they told me and accepting it without asking. So that was my second approach for learning French. But then I realized that what I was doing really is that I was learning French as an English speaker,
Oh,
which is so
oh,
weird. Yes.
oh, that's the worst.
I had to keep reminding myself that I had the upper hand. Like, no, you already know a Latin language. You didn't have to go through all of this.
Did you also encounter other variants of Spanish when you were in France?
There aren't really many variants of Spanish. I mean, I for what I can tell you is mostly slang what it changes. I mean, I always tell to people, if you try to speak Spanish, decide what country you like, because that's gonna be your personality as a Spanish speaker. um, so yeah, I mean, once you learn Spanish from one country and stick to it, like once you start it, finish there, and once you are fluent in that country, then you're fluent everywhere else. But you will have the slang from that country.
If someone wants to choose, what would you tell them? Like, what's the different personalities of the different Latin American countries?
Well, I always like to say that we are a family. Latin America is a family. So, like any family, you have your favorite cousin, which for us, for Mexicans, would be Colombia. You have that annoying aunt, that's Argentina. And then you have that other uncle that you really see, like it's sometimes there on Christmas Eve, but then you never hear about them again. That would be Brazil. It's like this big family, and we all care for each other. And I don't know. I think, of course, I would tell you that the best one is Mexico, right? Because I'm from here. But it's up to you.
And I wanted to maybe ask you if, like, what was your experience working with an international company, and how does it compare to your expectations?
Yes, I I like to think of myself as an adaptable person. So I try to always be open to what's to come. But yeah, I mean, what I was talking about before, I had in my last job, I had a Dutch boss,
Okay.
and
Aye. That's a complete off. I think I can like imagine that's like the complete opposite of what.
yes,
Yeah.
I always thought that he was angry at me. I always felt like I was not enough. I always felt, like all those negative feelings always pushing me down. Um, but yeah, I mean, I kind of understood what was happening. I could rationalize it, but at the same time, being there in the meeting, him telling me those things, you cannot help but feel. So yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually funny because our next question is, how did you connect to your coworkers?
Like, if it was easy or not.
Yeah.
It was easy with coworkers, not my boss, but the ones that were on my like level in the company. They were mostly Latin. Well, there was this girl who was from Peru, and the other girl, she was from Colombia, but she had lived her whole life in Spain. And then the other guy was Brazilian. So
Okay.
with them, it was not difficult at all, of course. Um,
So the
but
cousin and the uncle
Yeah.
were there.
I was gonna ask about what about Peru?
Yes.
What does Peru stand in the big family tree of Latin America?
Oh no, he's cute.
Okay.
We all like him. We like them.
Okay, that's great to hear. That's great to hear. At least you had a great time. Because like now that I think about it, this could have been the start of a massive like a sitcom.
Is there anything from the Mexican culture that gave you a unique advantage when connecting, when working with others?
Yes, I think that's very Mexican. It's our resourcefulness. Mexicans are, there's, I don't know if it's a saying or if people just talk about it or something. Like Mexicans get it done. Like if something is not working, if something's happening, you are not gonna wait to call for someone to come and fix it. Like you do it yourself, even though you don't know how to do it, and then you're gonna do a mess. But then it works, and it looks awful. It looks patched. It's fixed. Okay, it's actually, I believe it comes from this. It's a reference of undocumented people of Mexico living in the U.S. I would say, that they have it really hard, and they have to work, and they have to get money. However, you can, and have to be very resilient and very resourceful. I believe that's where this idea comes from, but I totally identify with that. I feel like we are, and we do, and we don't wait around for something to happen.
One thing you mentioned before the show, and right now you're calling us from Mexico. So I wanted to know what was like coming back to Mexico.
I It was so weird. It was so I wasn't away that much, that long time. It was like nearly 2 years, not even 2 years. So I thought everything was going to be the same, and everything was going to perfectly as I remembered it. It was like visiting a new country. It felt for me like coming for the first time. It was like every experience was new, every flavor, every smell, and I don't know. It was like overwhelming, to be honest. In the beginning, it was like, oh my god! But I know I've been eating this food since I can remember. why does it taste so good and so different? I also discovered that there are some foods now that I don't like. I discovered that now I'm not as tolerant with um, spice as I was before, because my body got used to not eating spice at all. So yeah, it was completely different, and my body react. I got allergies. Never in my life I have a problem with allergies. I live in a part of my city that it's like in the outsides, so I'm very close to nature and animals. But I've lived here my whole life and I've never had a problem. And now I'm always having allergies. So yeah, it's like my body completely shifted, and yeah, it's a good experience too. It's like seeing it from a different perspective.
When I came back a little bit from Italy before coming here to Berlin, I kind of felt like a tourist in my own house. It was insane. Yeah, I came in, everybody, my friends were like, "Oh, let's go to this place that we used to go to," or like this activity that we used to go all together. And while that's nostalgic to me, I felt kind of like out of place. It's like I used to go this every Friday, and now I feel like I feel like I'm the little cousin from out of town that needs like, "Oh yeah, this is my little cousin," like keep him entertained, like stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I totally get you, man.
A lot of people prepare you for going abroad. There will be cultural shocks, even though you don't have any expectations or you don't really know what that means yet. But nobody prepares you that you get a cultural shock when you return home, because you can get a cultural shock from your own culture. And
Yes.
it's just true, but nobody prepares you for that.
And also, when I came back, I found that it's not that, like, the distances are not that long inside of Mexico. I remember that when I was a child, I thought, like, oh man, I don't know, it would be really good to go to, I don't know, Monterrey, which is in the north, but it's so far away. It's very difficult. But then I was living there in France, and I could just hop on a bus and be in Italy or be in Spain. It widened my mind that it's not that hard. Like, you can just take a bus, then go anywhere. It's we're all connected. It's cool. It's fun and close. That's another shift in my yeah, my personality, I'd say, or in my way of seeing life when I came back to Mexico.
You do really realize how small the world actually is.
Yes.
Insane. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're coming closely to the end of this interview, and we have one last question for you. So, when people think about Mexico, or when you think about Mexico, what is one thing that you would like people to remember?
I think that Mexico is the best country in the world.
Very direct. I love that. Love
No disrespect to all the others, but now, I mean, I think that what people can have an idea about Mexico is that you can do anything here, and you can find any type of um like, you can have beach, and you can have desert, and you can have forest, and you can have a jungle. Like, if you want to explore, you can come to Mexico, and there's something different happening everywhere. There's nice people, always welcoming, nice weather wherever you are. um I don't know, I feel like it's great. I mean, I always tell my friends, you should come at least once, and yeah, experience for yourself.
Yeah, I'm gonna put that in my next to-do list when it comes to traveling, because that sounds like a lot of fun, honestly. After reading all of this stuff, it sounds like a lot of fun. But thank you so much, Omar, for your great insights about the world of Mexico. If there's somewhere that you can be reached at, or something that you would like to promote, you already done a lot of promotion.
Paid promotion. I'm gonna
Paid promotion.
I'm gonna clip all of this and send it to the government.
Oh, okay. Well,
No, thank you very much. I really enjoyed my time here. It was a great experience. Like I said before, hearing all of this from the outside, and having an opportunity to give my experience about my country that I love so much. I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.
yeah, that's fantastic. And with that, I think we can give it a little bit of a closer to our amazing episode of Connected by Language. If you enjoyed what you heard, subscribe and, leave a comment. Maybe share about your personal experience to Mexico or some other Latin American countries that you've been in. We're very welcoming to see all of the different stories that the world has.
And please don't forget that you can meet us in person in Czech Republic between the 29th and the 31st of May at Polyglot Gathering.
So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode of Connected by Language. Bye-bye.
Bye.